Hey yo, this is Ezequiel, and I'm here to talk about the Bible chapter 22 is called Ezekiel, Examination of God. Well, ever since I read the whole thing about Ezekiel before, there's some actions they might tell you what are the directions in your area. Sometimes when you get in trouble, you'll find some every exposes trust issues, social issues. When God can't stand how conversations when they get mad or angry, but it feels like you need to have the difference what God tell you. You don't take too much reactions. When you get reaction with someone, then they can't do that. That's why we need to change that plot. As long as any celebrations, they can do it. It doesn't matter if you don't have to hit any people, but the chapter that Ezekiel says it's all about examination. They're just like some people, they get discriminated, like racism. It can be white, it could be black, it could be Mexicans, Native Americans, or Anglo, Asians, and others. Well, it's the same. That's why we're in America. If people wanted to have separate things, then do it. And they can't force it. Sometimes when people talk about slavery, that shit could get angry. What God tell everything about this. That's what black people are warned out for, since the slave trade show up since 1500s to 1800s. You can't blame for anybody. And that's why we need to have social justice. That's why we need to explain about how examination of God is differences in that. That's why the celebration of Juneteenth tells everything what God needs some explanations. That's why we want to make sure you don't want to get in trouble to force things. You don't have to get mad. You don't have to get angry. You don't have to get upset. Don't do it. It can be awful with that stuff. When people, they do some action things they didn't like, they can put you fired. That's why we want you to be careful. That's why we want to make sure you want to feel right in this stuff. And fortunately, you can still have that bright term. But it's okay to not to deal with God that stuff. It gets angry, like when, for example, when you're breaking in someone's house or a car or something like that, don't do that. That's called an examination. You don't want to do that. That's why God is angry about this. Kids do that too, or adults too. We want you to make it feel happen. Don't make something stupid if you do something wrong. If someone was saying is something wrong with it, forget that. Sometimes people, they can plot for secrets and stuff. Then they can't do anything with that stuff. That's why we want to try to warn out how God can explain this. Because when people they're getting mad about that stuff, then fuck that. I don't care about when people get angry. That's why we want to make sure you have to check in your bank account. You have to check in your amount. You have to check your own strategies. It's okay. You can plot some things, But the best thing you could do, just try to keep a secret. No one's gonna get mad at you. No one's gonna get that shit. But when someone gets mad, then sometimes they could get pissed when they see some shit. That's why the book named Ezekiel was talking about how things can get oftenly bad. But if you want to be in a good example with your parents or your sisters or your brothers, there's any differences that you need to tell the people about this. That's why we want to make sure you don't want to excuses. If there's something wrong, well, we'll explain that later. But at the end of the day, it's all about you. just remember, whenever people getting angry or mad is gonna get targeted. When someone is doing this shit, ignore it. Secrets can help you. If you don't fall in love with secrets, then just ignore them. That's the best thing what God do. And especially for someone's following directions, when something was wrong with that shit, block it. It will be good. It'll be good without it. That's it. Alright, so I guess that's it for today. So I'll keep you posted for the next video. So this is Ezequiel Eyes of the Sea. Keep it out of sea, keep it real.